In this video, we're going to talk about creating pop-up menus in Flash. And basically what we're doing is we're creating a two-layer menu. So we're going to have one menu. So let's create the menu bar for the main menu. So we're going to use a rectangle tool. Let's choose this dark red color, or whatever color you prefer. And then I'll create a rectangle that goes across the width of the stage, like so. And this is going to be the background for our main menu. And then we'll create some buttons using white text color. So we'll have our home button. And actually, I'm going to just copy this and paste it a few times. Copy, paste. And I'm pasting in place using Control-Shift-V so that it pastes it right on top of itself. So we'll have four buttons: Home, About Us, Products, and Contact Us. Okay, so I'm going to grab this Contact Us button. I'll nudge it over to the right, and then I'll highlight all of these buttons by holding on to Shift and clicking on each of them until all four of them are selected. And then we want to space them out, so we're going to use the Align panel, and we're going to click down here at the bottom at Space Evenly Horizontally. So now there's an equal amount of space between each of the buttons. And then we want to make sure that this entire group of buttons is centered on the stage horizontally. So in order to do that, we can't just turn on to stage and then click on Align Horizontal Center, because that will put all of them in the center of the stage. So let's hit Control Z to undo that. What we need to do is group them together and then align them with the horizontal center of the stage, and then we can ungroup them. So with all four still selected, we can hit Control G or Command G on the Mac to group them all together. And then make sure that two stages turned on and click on Align Horizontal Center. And it looks like we already had it pretty well centered because it didn't move much when I clicked on that, but there we go. Now we know that it's centered horizontally on the stage. So let's go ahead and turn off to stage, close our Align panel, and then with this group selected, we can hit Control-Shift-G to ungroup it. There we go. So now we have our four buttons. And right now they're just text fields, but each one of these is going to act as a button. But for this tutorial, we're only going to make one of these into a drop-down menu, and that's going to be our Products button. So when we hover over the Products button, we're going to have a menu that drops down under Products, and we'll be able to select options on that menu. So let's say we have a few different types of products we want to sell. Well, let's start by clicking on the Products button, and this is going to be a movie clip. So we're going to hit F8 to convert it to a movie clip symbol, and we'll call it Products. Click on OK. And then we'll click on that products movie clip, come down to our properties panel, and type in products_MC. So that's going to be the instance name that we're going to use whenever we add code to this movie clip in ActionScript. Now you can go ahead and convert the rest of these to buttons if you'd want to, or to movie clips, or whatever you'd like. I'm not going to worry about it for this tutorial because we're really just going to focus on our products drop-down menu. So let's go into this movie clip by double-clicking on it. So now we're inside the Products menu timeline. And inside this movie clip, what we're going to do is we're going to create another movie clip that contains our drop-down menu. So let's choose the text tool. I'm going to turn off bold. This text is going to be a little bit narrower. And I'm going to choose black for the fill color for the text. And let's say that we're selling office products. So we have a few different types of office products we want to sell. So we have pens, and then we'll copy and paste that. And we have pencils. Let's copy and paste that. Paper. Copy, paste that, and we'll just do one more, maybe office furniture. So we'll type furniture here. Okay, pens, pencils, paper, and furniture. Okay, so let's take all of this and let's nudge it over to where we want it to be whenever this menu pops down. And let's also give a background to this movie clip. So let's choose the, actually first of all, let's put this products on its own layer. So let's cut that, Control X. We'll create a new layer above the current layer, and we'll hit Control Shift V to paste that in place. So now that's on its own layer. And we'll just call that Products, and we'll lock that layer. Now down here, we're going to have the our other buttons, and then under the buttons layer, we'll drag that to the bottom. We'll have, actually, we're not going to have another layer below that because we're going to put it all in a movie clip. Okay, so we have all of our buttons here. Let's go ahead and convert each of these to buttons. So we'll click on the first one, F8 to convert it to a symbol. We'll make it into a button symbol. And this will be called pens. We'll click on pencils, F8 to convert it to a symbol. We'll call it pencils. Paper, F8. Furniture, F8. And then we can give each one of these instance names. So furniture underscore MC, I'm sorry, that's actually a button. Furniture underscore BTN. Paper underscore BTN. Pencils underscore BTN. And finally, pens underscore BTN. We can also go into each of these if we'd like. And maybe when we hover over them, we want the text to lighten up a little bit. So we'll go over to the overstate, hit F6 to add a new keyframe there, and then select our text and choose a dark gray color. So we can do that for each of our options. We'll go into the pencils, click on the overstate, hit F6 to add a new keyframe, then click on the text and change that to a dark gray. So I'll go ahead and do that for the other two buttons as well. Overstate, F6, click on the text, and change it to dark gray. Okay, so now when we hover over those buttons, they'll turn a dark gray color instead of black. And now let's put a background behind our buttons here. So we're going to choose the rectangle tool. Let's go ahead and give it a thin black stroke. And we'll give it a hairline stroke here. And maybe let's not round the corners. For the fill color, I'm just going to choose a solid gray. Let's choose a lighter color actually, like so. And then we'll draw a rectangle. There we go. Okay, now you can actually, you know what, I'm going to get rid of that stroke. I don't like it. And obviously you can spend a little more time to make this look a lot better, but we're just going to keep it simple here. Okay, now we're going to take all of this, except for our products. Make sure your products layer is locked so you don't accidentally select that main menu item. We just want to select the gray background and all of our sub menu items. So once all of that is selected, we'll hit F8 to convert it to a symbol, and we'll just call it Dropdown and make sure it's a movie clip symbol. So we'll click on OK there, and we'll give this an instance name of Dropdown underscore MC. Alright, so we have our Dropdown movie clip here. Inside that movie clip we have a number of buttons, and now what we want to do is we want to make sure that it disappears behind the red bar. Now the red bar is in the main timeline, and this products movie clip is on top of that red bar. So there's really no way to put this behind that red bar, but what we can do is we can put a mask around it so that it only reveals the portions of the rectangle that are below that red bar. So we'll create another layer above the buttons layer. We'll double click and we'll just call it mask. And in that mask layer, we'll create a rectangle with no stroke. And we'll just give this a bright green fill. That's what I usually do for my masks. And then we're going to draw a rectangle that starts at the bottom of our movie clip and covers up everything up to the bottom of the menu there. And we might need to nudge it a little bit to get it where we need it to be. And let's zoom in a little bit. Nudge it upwards so that it's right there at the bottom of that menu bar. And what's going to happen is when we convert this to a mask, it's going to reveal the layer underneath it only where it's touching this green rectangle. So when we right click and convert it to a mask, you'll notice that this gray rectangle on the buttons layer is showing only inside where we put that mask. It's not showing inside the red section up here. So let's hit Control 1 to zoom out. And there we go. So this movie clip, this product's movie clip, is going to behave a lot like the movie clip button that we created earlier, where we had an up, over, and out state. In the up state, we're not going to be able to see this movie clip at all because it's going to be outside of the mask. The way we move it outside of the mask is we need to unlock that buttons layer. And when we unlock it, all of a sudden the mask breaks. We can see the green rectangle again. We're just going to turn off the mask layer by clicking underneath the eye icon to make it invisible. So now we can see the actual buttons movie clip. So what we want to do is, in frame 1, we're actually going to have it off the stage. And in frame 10, we'll start our over state, where we're hovering over it and the menu animates down. So we'll jump out to frame 10 on the buttons layer, hit F6 to add a keyframe, and let's say we want this to take half a second. Well, half a second, since we're at 12 frames per second, is just 6 frames, so we'll jump out to frame 16 and hit F6 again. So we've created 2 more keyframes here. In this first keyframe, our movie clip is going to be above the mask. So we're going to click on the movie clip, and we're going to nudge it upwards until it's outside of the mask. Now we can't see the mask right now, but if we turned it on by clicking underneath the eye icon and then extended it out, let's just jump out to the last frame here and hit F5 to extend that mask out. When we get to frame 10, we see that the movie clip is outside of the mask. And then once it gets to frame 16, it's going to be in its final location. So we need to right click between those 2 keyframes and create a motion tween there. So that motion tween is basically just this movie clip animating down into the mask. And when it animates into the mask, it will basically reveal itself. So if we lock the buttons layer and the mask layer, and then go to frame 10 and click and drag across, we can see what that looks like. Okay, so now let's right click inside that tween, and actually not right click, just click inside the tween and then drag our easing slider up. We just want a little easing there so it'll look a little smoother. And then for the out state, let's actually go ahead and extend out the products here as well. Let's just bring that out to frame 40 for now, F5 to insert frames there. We'll create 2 new layers, a labels layer and an actions layer. We can lock both of those. For frame 1, for the labels layer, we'll label that one up. For frame 10, that's going to be the beginning of the over animation. So in frame 10 for the labels layer, we'll add a new keyframe by hitting F6, and we'll label that one over. And then we'll start the out animation in frame 20. So we'll go to frame 20, F6, give that a frame label of out. Okay, and that's just going to take 6 frames as well. So that'll end in frame 26. So we can go up to frame 27 and highlight all these excessive frames there, and then hit Shift F5 to delete those. So everything ends in frame 26. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the same animation here, we're going to copy it and paste it over here, and then just reverse it so that it's animating back up. So let's highlight those frames, and as we talked about before, if you remember, we can copy and paste these frames very easily by holding onto the Alt key or Option key if you have a Mac, and then clicking and dragging across to where we want to paste them. And there we go, we've pasted those frames. Now with those frames still highlighted, we're going to right click and go down to reverse frames. So we've basically just reversed the order. So now when we click and drag across, it's animating back up. So that's our out animation. Now we need a couple of stop actions. In frame 1, we want a stop action because we don't want it to start animating until it gets to the over state. Another thing we see here in frame 1 is that our movie clip is down here at the bottom, whereas in frame 10, we've moved it up. So let's unlock that buttons layer and make the mask layer invisible for a second. And in this first keyframe here, we need to move this up. So we're going to move it up to the same position it is in frame 10. There we go. And it's outside of the mask, so we won't be able to see it. So we can lock that and then turn the mask back on. There we go. Now it's not visible until it animates in for the overstate. Okay, so let's make sure the mask is visible throughout the entire animation. So we'll go out to frame 26 for the mask layer and hit F5 to insert frames. And then we'll go to frame 1 for the actions layer, and we need a stop action there so that it doesn't start playing by default. So with frame 1 selected, we'll hit F9 and type in our stop action. And then we'll go ahead and paste that at the end of the overstate. So we'll click on frame 1 where that action is in the actions layer, hold on to Alt, click on it again and drag it over to the end of the over animation in frame 16. So when the over animation plays, it'll play through and it'll stop in frame 16. And then when we move our mouse away from this button, it's going to jump to the out state and animate out, where it will jump back to frame 1 where it encounters that stop action. So now we have this set up. In the next video, we'll actually add the code that's going to make it work.